Okay, let's get it. Black girl magic dripping. Yeah, she's on a mission. Keeping our culture lifted. Now you can watch and listen. Tammi Mac. Oh, what show is that? It's Tammi Mac show on Fox. So, Tammi Mac, Tammi Mac, yeah. Who that? Tammi Mac, hey. So you know it's Tammi Mac, hey. Tammi Mac.
Hey, welcome to Friday. Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox. So, I need a live studio audience. Can I get a hand clap? Can I get a hand? Can I get a hand clap, Jack? Jack, can I get a hand clap? Okay. Tonight we're talking about, look, Fridays. They get so loaded, I must say, because all of my guests on Fridays come shooting from shotguns. We're talking about why Derek Chauvin's attorney is filing a motion for a new trial, why another Karen attacked a Black Amazon delivery driver, and why the Tokyo Olympics is banning Black Lives Matter apparel. It's Friday, and that means it's time for another round of the political and trending highlights of the week with my special Friday faves, co-host of the co-founder of the Anti-Racism Kentucky Coalition, Dr. O.J. Oleka's here. Activist and radio personality Dominique Diprima is with us, and political analyst Ed Sanders is sticking around. Alicia Cooper had to go do some comedy stuff, so she couldn't be with us tonight, y'all. And we're blaming Ed for that. Ed,
everything's opened up. We're glad Alicia's out. Back making some money. Good deal.
Okay. I see how you flip that. Okay. All right. Like, you're not supposed to put that on me. Let that lady make her money. Okay. And Dr. Oleka, he's got a little different background going there. So he's somewhere being very political in our nation's capital. So thank you for giving me an hour of your time away from the president, Dr. Oleka.
It is good to be with you, Tammi Mac.
And Dominique, it's me and you. You know, we steady ready. We stay here. We here. Yeah. Let's start. Speaking of two ladies, let's start our topics tonight with a lady. This, I think, came as a surprise to everyone. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms announced that she will not seek a second term. Come on, are you kidding me? I mean, she was vying for vice president of the United States of America. Is this the end of her political career? Did this police brutality just drive her up the walls, and is something she can't handle? Why? Why are we losing Mayor Lance Bottoms? Dominique?
Well, you know, it has to be an upgrade. That's the only thing I can think of. She's ambitious, she's smart, she's got a great reputation. I mean, either she's going to get an appointment somewhere like the mayor of LA, who's reportedly going to be ambassador to India, or maybe she's got a fat paycheck in the private sector.
Okay. Dr. Oleka, what do you think?
Well, it's certainly interesting, mainly because she first announced that she was running for re-election. She had a fundraiser with President Biden, and now all of a sudden she's not. I mean, I don't know anything. I don't know folks in her camp. I do know people in Atlanta, Republicans to be sure, and they say this is either what Dominique said, it's either some upgrade, either the private sector, an appointment somewhere, or there's some scandal we just don't know about. And I think that's going to be the interesting question to see what happens over the next year, the last year of her term. Do we find something out that maybe she knew and decided she didn't want to go through to have to run again? Or does she get some new executive appointment? But I don't think this was something that was done just because she's tired and ready to go home.
You don't think it was done because she's done with politics?
Not on purpose.
So you think it might be a scandal involved, Dr. Oleka?
Well, again, I think it has to be one of the few options that we've laid out. It's either some appointment somewhere, some great private sector opportunity, or just some scandal. When I say scandal, I don't mean that she's done something nefarious personally. But again, as you mentioned, with the issues with the police department, there are some other local issues with regard to how some of the unincorporated areas of the city are behaving. They might lose some revenue that could make a second term challenging. I think that there are either some political issues that play very negatively or something very positive. But I think we'll all know here in the next year.
He has to say that, Tammi. He's a Republican. He's got to get that little smear in there.
But I didn't take it as a smear, Dominique. I didn't take it as a smear. I understood what he said.
Could it be a scandal?
It was the way I said it, though. Like, is there a scandal? Is she okay?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's a shocker to be sure. I mean, but when I step back and think about it, big city mayors have had a tough go this year, and her in particular. I think one of the reasons why we're shocked about this is because she's one of the few in the country that showed real leadership, and leadership matters to us, and so we feel as though we're losing a leader. But when you look at Atlanta, a lot of tumult around the politics. I mean, certainly it's just coming off of the Georgia elections, the presidential election as close as it was, and then certainly the 2 Senate seats. But as OJ referenced, you've got all of these police actions, and I kind of look at the police shooting of Rashard Brooks, and then the 2 officers that tased the young students, the Morehouse student, the Spelman student. She fired them, and then apparently they've been reinstated for some measure of due process. And so I really haven't tracked Atlanta directly, but you may find that the polling and the situation may not play out for her. I know that she's got some strong challengers. Sounds like one of the council leaders is challenging her, and then the former mayor has also been critical as well. So you never know where the decision came from.
Yeah. Go ahead. Dominique, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I mean, there's always somebody critical. I mean, you're the mayor and you're a Black woman. There's always somebody throwing stones. I'm going with she's moving on up.
To the east side, to a deluxe apartment.
In the sky.
Derek Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, filed a request for a new trial. His reason? Chauvin didn't receive proper justice during his trial for the murder of George Floyd, for which he's convicted on all counts. In his court filings, let's see if I can get this straight here. In his court filings, Eric Nelson also accuses Minnesota prosecutors of committing pervasive, prejudicial, prosecutorial misconduct, which allegedly further impacted Chauvin's ability to receive a fair trial. Do you think Nelson's request will be granted?
I don't. I think it's. I would expect this filing from his attorney. He's going to pull every trick out. In representing his client. But look, it was there was a lot of desire to see an outcome in this trial. A lot of people concerned about what happened. It was obviously across the news day and night. But I thought the jurors, were presented a strong case and came to a decision. A notion like this presumes that the jurors can't make the decision, that they can't be unbiased. I can see a news report and then still come to an unbiased decision. So I don't think this will get.
I agree with that, because they've also thrown in a brother who was on the jury who wore a Black Lives Matter T-shirt at a Martin Luther King Day festival, or some type of memorial service. So that kind of got tossed into the mix. Dominique, what do we think about that?
Well, there's no jury in America that somebody hasn't seen the tape. Somebody doesn't have an opinion. So we're never, ever going to end this trial if we have to find people that haven't been exposed at all to the George Floyd story, or people that don't have an opinion about whether Black lives matter. The fact that you think the lives of Black people matter should not disqualify you from being an impartial juror. Hopefully everyone thinks our lives matter. I don't know how you can be on a jury if you don't think Black lives matter, because that
should be a jury question. That should be a jury question. Do you think Black lives matter? That should be a jury
You have no place on a jury.
Yeah.
Well, it honestly might have been a jury question as they were selecting the jurors, and the people who said yes probably got thrown out by the defendant. I mean, the challenge with this is what his job is as an attorney. I mean, he is responsible for defending his client, for putting his client in a situation to get a different outcome that would be better served by his client. I hope that this doesn't happen, but this is the challenge when you do have these high profile cases that everybody has seen. The judge then is able to use discretion to determine whether or not a different outcome at least could be entertained. So again, I hope it doesn't happen. I wouldn't be shocked if it did. there's grounds for it, but again, to the points that have already been made, it's pretty impossible to have ignored the George Floyd case and the George Floyd killing in the videotape over the past year. So you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, well, maybe you can go to Utah.
Have they
They don't
not
have
seen it
YouTube
there?
in Utah.
Well, I'm
I
just
think they've
thinking
got the internet there.
well, I thought like that there's a certain religion that doesn't really, ascribe to watching television and things of that nature. No.
Oh, you're thinking of the Amish, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we should let them be. We should only let them be jurors.
So we'll have an all-white jury. That's not going to go over well.
Hey, now there could be some black Amish people. We don't know.
I didn't think of it that way. I was thinking from it more from a godly perspective, maybe, perhaps. Okay. According to the Guardian, a report was released Tuesday about the LA Sheriff's Department, which has faced national scrutiny for its corruption scandals, killings of young Black and Latino men, and retaliation against victims' relatives who speak out against them. I mean, come on, Dominique, you've been in LA for a very long time.
Yes.
Ooh, how long have we dealt with this? The report produced by Black Lives Matter LA and Central Community Service Organization alleges that LASD deputies regularly drive by or park in front of the homes and workplaces of the Ria and Vargas families and have taken photos or recorded them for no reason. Deputies have repeatedly pulled over their relatives, searched their cars, and detained and arrested them without probable cause, allegedly in retaliation for their protest. Officers have also shown up to vigils and family gatherings, mocking and laughing at them or threatening to arrest them, and have also damaged items at memorial sites. This is crazy.
It's crazy unless you know a lot about the LA County Sheriff's Department. I mean, the former sheriff is in jail, right? Lee Baca is actually in prison. And so what we did is we elected somebody even worse than him. His name is Alex Villanueva. He came on, he's very much like the Trump of the LA County Sheriff's Department. He came on as an outsider. Everyone thought he would shake things up and make change, and he turned out to be a total disaster. The LA County Sheriff's Department has actual gangs made up of deputies. A recent study out of LMU found that there were 15 different gangs that are made up of deputies, and how they get their stripes is by killing and beating up citizens. And I have actually talked to some of these families that were talked about in this study, which wasn't just Black Lives Matter, by the way. It was the National Lawyers Guild and the ACLU. And these families have had their houses ransacked. It's, we can say allegedly because there hasn't been a formal investigation, but when you talk to the families and they are telling you these sheriffs are doing this, why would they target them? There's no crime that's taken place. The only thing that happened is that family had a loved one that was shot by a deputy and killed. Mm-hmm. And then those families go and protest that their loved one was killed. And they go to, to the police commission, to the county board of supervisors meetings, and they're protesting in front of the Hall of Justice. And then suddenly they start being harassed by the sheriffs. That's very suspicious, but it fits what we're calling a pattern in practice. And that's why I wish the Department of Justice would put the LA County Sheriff's Department on their list, that their Santa Claus list of police departments that they need to investigate, just like they're doing with the Minneapolis Police Department.
Ed?
Yeah, Dominique's right. Living in Los Angeles, and even for the national soulmates that are listening tonight, you typically think of LAPD, and LAPD garners all of the headlines. But the actuality is it's the sheriffs that really have that special reputation for going above and beyond, and it's well maintained. I think when you look at the LA structure, the county sheriffs actually police a lot of the smaller cities in LA County. And what ends up happening is you lack the civilian oversight to affect change. And, a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to work on an effort to allow the Civilian Oversight Commission of the LA Sheriff to get subpoena power. And it was surprising. It was really just surprising that the LA County Sheriff actively opposed such a measure, that transparency in policing is something for officers to fight. But that's the case with the sheriff, and it goes back to protecting their own and protecting sort of the culture of the sheriff. And it's not shocking, and I guess that's the big thing that I leave you with is to hear this story. It's not shocking. I do wish they could expand it and go further, because these aren't the only two families. You could tell this story over and over and over again.
It's been problematic for decades. Yeah.
I just want to say, to Ed's point too, this isn't not a casual resistance. The sheriff is actually suing to keep from talking to his own inspector general, who's part of the oversight team that's supposed to be getting this transparency. He's suing, so he won't have to sit down and have a conversation with his inspector general.
We're going to take a quick break and come right back on the Tammi McLeod Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi McLeod Show on Fox Soul. I'm Tammi Mac, and I have my Friday favorites with me. Dr. OJ Oleka is here, Ed Sanders and Dominique Diprima. Alicia doing that comedy thing, making people laugh for a living. Let's go to the chat here. Kim Possible says, I love this panel. Sad to not see Alicia, though. Oh, we're going to send her a message that you miss Alicia tonight. Arez says, happy Friday, Tammy, Dominique, Dr. OJ, and Ed with your pretty eyes, Sanders. So, Ed, I have to ask about the eyes. Have you been getting this since you were a child?
Yeah, it goes back. It's one of those, I'm happy to have it, but it's also one of those things, in our history where I know where it came from. So it's that mixed blessing, but I'm thankful of the complimentary.
Did somebody tell you got your eyes from the slavery days or something?
Yeah, I could trace it back there.
Really?
Yeah. That's
interesting. I have my little godson. He has, I don't know, brown or green eyes. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of notice when people, every time we're out, people specifically walk up to him and say, you have such beautiful eyes. And I try to wait to see how he's going to react to that. And it went from everybody always tells me that to thank you very much. And then he just kind of moves on. So I feel like he's kind of growing into this being a part of his life. So that's kind of why I ask you how you deal with it your whole life. I'm a bashful guy. So it's one of those things where, I try to get off of it as quickly as possible and go on to the next thing.
You said, leave me alone.
My bad. I made it a whole show topic.
Right.
Ed, how does it feel being 6'4"?
Now I'm blushing.
Okay, so the Church of Jesus Herod Christ, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, says, my dad always said, stay out of politics. Ever try getting political in the home? I'm not sure who you're asking who you're asking, but I can tell you these three people on the panel right now probably get political in all kinds of circles. Incog says, Atlanta had a mayor named Keisha. Ha ha ha. We covered that when she won. Incog, we all over that. It's like Ed's green eyes. We over that. Keisha is probably going to get dragged into the T.I. and Tiny mess, unfortunately. This is why rappers and politics don't mix. Someone is always doing something to ruin the trajectory. Word on the street is that maybe she's got something to do with T.I. and Tiny. Yeah, where y'all getting y'all words on the street from? This is something.
Media takeout. Is that the street?
Yeah, that's probably the word on the street. Yeah.
We got her with T.I.
Well, what would really be funny if we're laughing and that happens, but okay.
If that happens.
All bad. We're
going all in.
Let's see here. We've got so much in the chat tonight. I can't cover it all, but y'all keep it coming because we chat back. All right. GH says it also raised awareness to systemic racism. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. At Richard, let me go back and see what Richard is saying. Richard says to try to take advantage of the fact he decided to murder someone slowly in public and front of the camera is ridiculous, referring to Derek Chauvin, I'm assuming here. And then we have, I cannot pronounce who your name is. It's a bunch of letters, random letters kind of strung together. So I don't want to mess that up. But one of our soulmates, Dominique, says, I love Dominique Diprima, and I've been watching her since Home Turf, KRON 4.
Wow.
There we go.
What's Home Turf? KRON 4, Dominique. You want to share?
That's how I got my start as a broadcaster. I had my own show on the NBC affiliate in San Francisco when I was a teenager, actually. It was a hip hop show. It was a pioneering show called Home Turf. And it was a long time ago. So big props to you for remembering Home Turf.
So it was 106 in Park before 106 in Park.
Absolutely. Yes.
Ah, of course. You're a trendsetter. Of course. Of course. So speaking of NBC, according to NBC News, a video was released Tuesday of a sheriff's deputy arriving at the home of Andrew Brown Jr. to serve an arrest warrant before he was shot and killed. Let's take a look at this. So civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who is representing Brown's family, tweeted that the video showed a militarized police force rushing to kill Andrew Brown, and said that that type of policing is terrorizing communities. It's what we just talked about with the LASD, right, Dominique?
Yes, it is. Actually, Attorney Crump is coming to Los Angeles May 17th. There's going to be a big rally in the city of Pasadena because there's a man there named Anthony McLean. Similar case, killed by Pasadena police. And Ben Crump is teaming up with Attorney Kerry Harper to take on that case. George Floyd's family will be in town for that. And it's just sad because it's the same story in a different city time and time and time again. And I think, you know, Attorney Crump is really doing a great job in turning the spotlight on these cases and making people face the music and making people question the official story and really dig a little deeper into the facts.
A private autopsy commissioned by the family and released on Tuesday notes that Brown was shot 5 times, including once in the back of the head. Ed, how do we feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, to build on what Dominique was laying out, a lot of this conversation always seems to come back to the policies and procedures that police officers follow. And what I agree with Dominique on is that Attorney Crump is calling into question how these procedures have been set and how they're used. When you look at the video and you look at the approach to the gentleman who is a suspect at this point, unless you have just actionable intelligence that he's armed to the hilt and about to start firing, it seems like they're approaching this with the high probability that shots are going to be fired. And certainly, when you look at it and one of the shots hits him in the back of the head, you say, well, he wasn't facing you, he wasn't trying to hurt you, you shot him in the back of the head. And these are the procedures and policies that we've got to call into question.
Dr. Oleka?
Well, Tammi Mac, I bring this up all the time as a conservative. It becomes very concerning to me when you have agents of the state who are legally able to kill you using force with military style and military grade weaponry. Again, I don't know a whole lot about the situation. That the video was smaller to me on this screen, so I haven't seen it in great detail, but I have a lot of concern if the police are able to do these types of things to people. Again, being shot in the back of the head with 5 shots total is concerning to me. These are the types of things where, again, I think that you can reach across the aisle to say, as a conservative, we don't want anybody who is an agent of the state, again, this is a government, being able to execute people and be judge, jury, and executioner all at once. It violates due process, which is incredibly important, again, if you favor conservatism. And to Ed's point, in terms of policy, I wonder where state legislators and governors and attorneys general are on these issues. I mean, at this point in time, You got to be willing to step up and make some difficult, hard decisions, vote the right way on some significant issues, and to make sure the police are acting in an appropriate manner to actually protect and serve all citizens.
Well, you raise a good point. A few years ago in California, there was a bill making its way through the legislature that dealt with police use of force. And we've talked about this on the show in the past as well. And it's the political power of law enforcement to hold back these reforms. And, the bill in California, it took 2 years to get across the line, but it was opposed by law enforcement most of the way. Until there were tweaks and things made to it that I think watered it down. But I think you see that across state lines and across offices, whether you're talking about local law enforcement, whether you're talking about the state attorneys general. There is a lot of interest, or I think they give a lot of credence to police unions and what law enforcement is saying, and they end up slowing down any reforms that come to the table.
And that's why law enforcement unions, or cartels, as I like to call them, should not be allowed to contribute to political campaigns. They're totally skewing the process. In the middle of an unprecedented year of worldwide protests, a number of bills failed to make it through the state legislature in California, and they just didn't go anywhere. If they won't go anywhere now, when will they go somewhere? We're seeing the same thing with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and we're seeing the same thing in state houses all across the country. The issue with Andrew Brown Jr. brings up the issue of these body cams, because what use are they if we don't see the tape? And right now there is no consistent rules about what has to be done with those videotapes, who gets to see them, who has access to them, and when are they released to the public. If it's up to the police departments and they can show their convenient 20 seconds and hold it back even from the family, then what good is it? The law needs to catch up with the technology in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand what good is the camera if it can't be publicized immediately
Right.
in its entirety.
Right. And to your point there, you've got to call out the judge for making that ruling. And to your point, this is that coziness between in the judicial system and law enforcement. What the judge advocates is in terms of why you can only get this 20 seconds of video. You've just got to put that up and call the foolishness out.
Yeah. On Tuesday, the FBI announced it was opening a federal civil rights investigation into that shooting. We're going to take a quick break, come right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight we are covering all of this week's political trending topics and highlights. That's the business of being Black. And with me are my Friday co-hosts, Dr. OJ Oleka, Ed Sanders, and Dominique Diprima. Let's get real serious right now. On April 18th, 16-year-old Michaela Miller's body was found hanging from a tree by a jogger near the apartments where she lived in Hopkinton, a town 30 miles west of Boston. A spokesperson from District Attorney Marian Ryan's office initially announced that Michaela's death was not suspicious, but that the case was open and active. In a statement, the 16-year-old's mother wrote that the Hopkinton Police Department failed to properly log incidents about her daughter's death as she was ambushed hours before and found dead. She wrote the state police did not conduct an investigation or speak to the persons involved. She also said that Sergeant Sean O'Brien of the Millbury Police barracks advised her not to take the story of her daughter's death to the media. Otherwise, her sexuality would be exposed. Michaela identified as part of the LGBTQ plus community. Violence in Boston tweeted, 5 white teens in Hopkinton, Massachusetts jumped and beat up Michaela Miller. Hours later, she was dead. We want answers from District Attorney Marian Ryan, whose office has a history of withholding evidence and forcing independent reviews. How do we feel about this?
Well, heartbroken. I mean, first things first, it's a family is grieving the loss of a 16-year-old who's just really getting started in life. And so, there's not enough about this story that I know to go in the right direction, other than, I hope that there's transparency. I hope that the officials take the time to conduct a thorough investigation. But there is a lot here to unpack, but I hope for the best outcome.
I'm just not sure how the investigators investigate themselves, so to speak. The police themselves, so to speak. There has to be a shift. There has to be some type of balance in what we're seeing. And I think that's what people are asking for when we speak accountability into these investigations that really aren't investigations. They're just wordplay to make people go away. It's like saying, let me speak to your manager, and the manager comes in, I'll take care of her. And the manager never says anything. That's exactly what it is. Will an investigation happen? Will we find out why this young woman, why this young girl, this young Black child was killed? Dr. Oleka?
I mean, that's right. It is terribly sad, first and foremost. You had a 16-year-old girl who had so much life ahead of her, and now she doesn't. I think it should be pretty clear and pretty evident and pretty obvious that if ever you see a person hanging from a tree, a Black person in particular, with the history that we have in our country of lynchings and these kinds of behaviors, that you must investigate. You can't just turn a blind eye and say that there was nothing that happened. We know too much about the history of our country that if that happens, there absolutely could be foul play. I mean, the way that we're talking about it could be a hate crime times 2. This is a lynching potentially. And like Ed said, we don't know all the details of the case, but that's the problem. We need to know all the details of this information. We need to know exactly what happened between when she got...
Dr. Oleka, what must happen is the anti-lynching bill too. That way we know that we have placed people into office who care that this doesn't happen, and that it is illegal, and that it is offensive in a way that will put somebody away for a very, very long time. They won't even sign the anti-lynching bill. Can we get to it already, Dr. Oleka?
I wish we could. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think we also have to look at, as you pointed out, this child, because she is a child, was a member of the LGBTQ plus community. If in fact those investigators or law enforcement really tried to leverage her privacy against the family like that, that is problematic. And that somebody needs to be censured for that, because that is not okay. All Black lives matter. All Black lives matter. And this young woman's sexuality should have no bearing on the worth of her life or the quality of her investigation. That just really upsets me when I hear that. And to your point, Tammy, I think a lot of people are upset that the anti-lynching bill hasn't passed, especially since we're in the mood to pass, a hate crimes bill that recently made it through Congress in a rare bipartisan moment. But I am encouraged by the Justice Department under the leadership of Merrick Garland. He does seem to be moving towards using federal intervention to encourage hate crime charges, to look at civil rights aspects. We've seen with Derek Chauvin and even the digging up of another old case of Chauvin. All of these things are a trend line that could be helpful. That doesn't help this family right now, but hopefully it gives us some hope on the horizon.
Hopefully hopefully there's hope for us all on the horizon. So sound the alarm. Ding, 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 ding. We've got another Karen sighting, everybody. And she hails from Berkeley, California. I thought that's where they all were from.
Liberal Berkeley. Okay.
Well, look, I thought California was liberal, but hey, I'm beginning to wonder myself here now. Julie Warland and her unnamed boyfriend are facing a string of charges: false imprisonment, battery, using offensive words, and willfully threatening a Black Amazon delivery driver. According to reports, Warland called 911 on Kendall McIntosh, claiming he was speeding through the streets of North Berkeley. According to McIntosh, when he stopped to make a delivery, he was cornered by Warland, who then launched into an abusive tirade, including using the N-word. Per McIntosh, Worland used very derogatory language. You know, I was getting constant F-bombs thrown at me. I was getting just racial profiled from the jump. What's the deal with these Karens, y'all? Go for it, Ed.
I have to commend him for his patience. I was thinking about this story, and if I was him, I don't know that I could have, kept my hands in my pocket and remained calm, because she jumped in his truck, started grabbing the wheel, all that sort of stuff. It's just too much. It's too much. And
too much. They say black people do the most.
Right.
We need to change that narrative.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm glad it wasn't me, because I might have been the one to change the narrative. But all in all, I'm glad that law enforcement has taken some action against her. And this is much like the story of the lady in New York, where she called the police on the guy that was bird watching. There are certain things that you just shouldn't do. And you shouldn't go into someone's private space, especially this man who's out on a job, into his truck. All you're going to do is escalate a situation. In this case, no one got hurt physically at the scene, but she should answer to her actions.
What makes someone feel like they can do that? I mean, so today, let me tell you. So let me tell you what happened today. My girlfriend's in the grocery store, right? And the grocer is packing her bags, bagging her groceries. And a white lady walks up and she says, I need help. And, the grocer says, I got you. Hold on. Let me finish bagging this lady's groceries. And she says, no, I need help. And the manager, who's ringing up my girlfriend, says, he's helping someone else right now. I'm really kind of tired of you white trash just all over the place. I was like, no, he did not say that. He said, you people just think you can do anything nowadays. And I'm so done with it. This is the manager. He said, but I know what's wrong. You all know that your time is up.
Wow.
Wow.
Your time is up. I'm like, whoa. So, something's happening here. And I don't know if it's the divide that's getting further. Like, America is parting like the Red Sea. Moses is somewhere around, just breaking us apart. Dr. Oleka, do you feel that?
Well, I don't think I would have responded to that situation the way your girlfriend's manager did, but I do think it is a pretty awful thing to go back to the example or the situation that you gave with the Amazon driver. This is a terrible thing when you invade someone's private space and just decide that it is your own. Again, I always try to approach these things as both a black man and a conservative. I think you can be authentically both. I certainly am. And I think about property rights. And this was this man's work truck. This was his space. And someone else just invaded it. I mean, again, we're lucky this didn't turn dangerous, but he certainly would have had the right to decide that if somebody was going to invade his personal space, engage in a way that he did not ask for in a situation that was entirely his, he could have responded in a way where he could have defended himself that would have been proper. But I also want to look at this from a different perspective. I mean, we've had a lot of examples now in California, a pretty liberal state, Berkeley now, where just because you may have liberal politics, it doesn't mean you care about black people. And I think that this is something we should always keep in mind. If someone has a particular political party behind their name, or they say they're for some issue, or they claim that they're woke, you have to look at their actions. And this particular woman, some of these folks, they're not for us. Even if they say that they are, they act like they aren't. It's something we always have to remember.
Yeah, and Ed, I hear you saying, you don't know how you would have handled the situation, but we all know what would have happened if the brother would have went left. He would have been in so much trouble. And here come, the prosperity of white tears that would have sealed the deal on him for something that he didn't even initiate. So I'm glad the brother could maintain in that position, and I'm glad that she's being charged, and I'm glad that it's time to take a commercial break. I'm gonna just be quiet on this story, y'all, because it baffles me to no end. And it's a story I probably shouldn't be smirking at. So I'm a back away. And Dominique, Dr. Oleka, and Mr. Sanders, y'all handle this one for me, okay? A court ruled that a Black man with intellectual disabilities will be awarded more than $500,000 after he was enslaved for 5 years at a South Carolina restaurant. According to the United States Department of Justice, Bobby Paul Edwards, who is white, pleaded guilty in June 2018 to 1 count of forced labor for using violence and other coercive means to make John Christopher Smith work at his restaurant for more than 100 hours a week without pay. As part of his guilty plea, Edwards was sentenced to 10 years in prison and was ordered to pay Smith a little over $270,000 in restitution, just a little over. A court ruled last month that the amount should be doubled and Smith should receive more than $545,000. This story is the craziest story to me. How are we still enslaving Black people? One thing I can say about it is at least the brother's getting his restitution because the rest of us ain't.
Not yet. We will. Look, reparations are right around the corner, Tammy Mack. You see, they passed that in San Francisco, their reparation study. This story is crazy, though. And the thing that upsets me about it even more, because we know that lots of workers deal with wage theft all the time, where they're working hours they're not paid for. This guy took over this business, and when he took over, he decided to stop paying this guy. He's also abusing a disabled person. This person is intellectually disabled, and he forced him to live in squalor. He burned him. He beat him. This is not just go to work and you don't get paid, which is bad enough. This man was abused over a period of 5 years, and that is horrifying to me. And I'm glad the judge doubled the penalty here, but I feel like, they should tack on some more time just for the abuse and the abuse of this disabled, which is insult upon injury and human rights abuse piled upon human rights abuse.
Well, I'm afraid this is the part that scares me the most. First of all, who was the whistleblower? But secondly, he's gotten all this money now. He's intellectually disabled, which means there will be more people who are ready to take advantage of him. So he's going to live much of the same life, especially now. And that's what I fear for it.
Yeah, listen, there's so many different issues that come out of this. I mean, you can focus on the $500,000, and in my book, I think that's far too light of a restitution. That maybe 1 year of being treated that way. But there's so many things that I look at in this. I mean, one, that sort of abuse to go unreported for 5 years is just mind-boggling, because this wasn't done in the back room. That there were other people that saw that. And so I know a small town, but just sort of the acceptance of that by the local community is troubling, and that community should really look introspectively on anyone that's been to that restaurant, patronized it, witnessed it, and went on about their way and left that man to be abused the way he was. All told, when we start looking at how we deal with people with mental incapacities and how they function in the world, different states and different counties have different policies, but I'm hopeful that there's someone in his life, a conservatorship, something that can protect him as he continues to go forward. But what's clear is that for the last 5 years, he's really been living unprotected.
And I'm also interested in knowing for the last 5 years or however long it's been, he's adjusted to this particular lifestyle. And so how does he live outside of it now, is what I wonder. Dr. Oleka?
I think this is sick. It's not only sick, it's evil. When you really get down to it, he didn't only abuse man, he enslaved him. This we fought a war over this in this country. The idea that you can enslave human beings, particularly black people. Everyone has brought up some really good points, but the thing that
I'm sorry, look at his mugshot, like he's smart, dude smiling.
Well, that's the thing I was going to bring up. My biggest fear, Tammy Mack, is this isn't the first instance that this guy's done this. You don't just come up with this idea after you take over a business. My concern is, what has this man done in the past with other people? Have other individuals taken black workers and decided to stop paying them and made them slaves? This is the type of thing that is sick, that is disgusting. And again, it's not just about the restitution in terms of finances. This guy needs to be in prison for a lot longer than 10 years. It needs to be doubled and then doubled again. And there doesn't need to be any reduction in sentence for good behavior, because it is impossible to show behavior that is good when you are an evil person that's willing to enslave another human being.
Yeah, the devil is alive. The devil is alive. Y'all better get ready. We're going to take a break. Welcome back to the Tammi Mack Late Show on Fox Soul. So we're wrapping things up. So let's wrap things up with Tokyo Olympics. Tokyo Olympics athletes will not be allowed to wear Black Lives Matter apparel at game ceremonies, kneel during the national anthem, or raise a fist to oppose racism this summer. No, they can't do that. What message does this send to the United States and the world over? I'm a little confused about the story, though. I'm sorry. I'm a little confused about the story. Are they saying that no country can do that, or they're saying no one can do that? Because, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dominique. You look like you're ready.
No, I think it's dumb. Unless you're going to say, they can only, everyone has to wear the Olympic gear. I get that, but people should be able to raise a fist or whatever. I just think it's dumb. We have a reason to protest. We're not just doing it to be funny. And certainly athletes and athletics has been at the core of a lot of this protest for a long time, going back to Muhammad Ali, going back to, John Carlos, and, going back to
the 1968 Olympics, right?
Yes. I think it's dumb. And I think the athletes are probably, at least some of them will ignore it. And I hope they do.
I hope they form a collective group and they all do it. That's what I'm waiting for. Go ahead, Ed.
No, it's one of those things where, two things, right? One, the main piece is, when I look at the countries that sort of set the rules on the Olympics, it tends to be those European countries that were also the same countries that brought about the African slave trade. And so when I see a rule like this directed primarily at African Americans, it seems heavy-handed. It seems out of place. I can understand from an Olympic perspective, you don't want protests from all walks of the world, but this one is specific to Black Lives Matters. This isn't talking about some injustice in East Europe or Turkey. They're talking about Black Lives Matters, which means they have an issue with Black people speaking out, which is ironic, because I think one of the more notable and iconic moments in Olympic history was the 1968 Olympics, It's just a shame. It's a shame that the Olympic Committee felt the need to actually set this in place.
Well, what confuses me is that nobody takes a look at history and how it affects those three men from the 1968 Olympics. They became legends. They became martyrs for the movement. When we talk about Olympics and raising fists, Peter Norman, for crying out loud, wasn't even a part of the American fabric, and he was shunned just for wearing a pin and not raising his fist. But Tommy Smith and John Carlos, they are legendary, and we read about them today. Does anybody pay attention to history? And just saying that you can't do it will probably make people want to do it even more. Dr. Oleka, wrap us up.
Well, I think from the Olympic Committee's perspective, they probably just don't care a whole lot about what's going on in the country. And I say that to say it's one thing to be interested in what is happening in the United States. It's another thing to support the issues here in the U.S. Honestly, I think athletes will probably just ignore it. So I don't think this will end up being a big deal. But you're right. I think it is important for people to have freedom of expression. I think at the Olympics, that is even more important. It's part of our history as an American. I could care less about what the IOC does. I think Americans should do what they want to do. Go ahead and win the Olympics and win all the competitions, and show them who's the best.
Well, my producers are telling me, Alicia said that they'll be fined. I don't think they care, right? They don't care. Dominique, I know
that's a great way to get a new endorsement, as a matter of fact.
Nike can
it is a great way to get a new endorsment. Yes,
just do it.
Just do it. Raise a fist. Just do it. And with that, we're gonna raise our fist and get on out of here. All right, Black Power, everybody.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Dr. Oleka. Oh, so Dr. Oleka, you ain't gonna give me the Black Power.
You ain't gonna do it?
I didn't realize we was all doing it. I thought we
were trying to get a Nike check.
Thank you, Dr. Oleka, Ed, and Dominique. Until Monday, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.